Hello and welcome to Unqualified Advice, an entertaining show for entertainment purposes. Join us as we talk about running our businesses, what we've been learning, and how we're applying lessons from academia and real life as entrepreneurs and investors. This podcast is for informational purposes only. Topics discussed represent opinions represented by parties with different circumstances than your own and should not be taken as advice. Any discussion of securities or other investments should not be relied upon as investment advice. Consult your personal financial advisor and perform your own due diligence. Podcast hosts, guests, and clients of Fig Social Capital may own positions in securities discussed in this podcast. Hey, Sean. Welcome back.
Hey, Dan. Thanks. Nice to be back on online with you again.
It's a good Sunday.
Yeah, it is. It's a nice Sunday so far. How has your past couple of weeks gone for you?
Good. It's been really busy. We were hosting guests, and then they spent the weekend in the mountains, and then they came back, and then they left on the day that some other friends of ours flew in on the same day, so we turned the house over real quick, and then we did another mountain getaway, and it's been great and really nice, but very busy and distracting. And in the midst of it, Izzy had his little 18-month sleep regression, which has been, I think it's been hard on him. It's definitely been hard on us.
For the uninitiated, what does 18-month sleep regression mean?
It seems to be a thing, which is why I name it the 18-month sleep. And he's also 18 or 19 months now, so he's right on time. But I used to be able to read him 2 stories, kiss him on the forehead, lay him down in his crib, and he'd bop around for a little bit and then be asleep. And then it turned into, you can't leave the room, screaming and lots of crying, and hours go by before he actually sleeps. So it's a double whammy, right? He gets less sleep, which makes it harder to go to sleep. It's just a thing, I guess. He's getting better though. We're getting through it. You just stay consistent with your processes.
That's
the only advice I have. Every kid's different.
Yeah, I'm certain that that's the case. Is Lil in pre-K now?
Yeah, pre-K. Yeah, totally. She only goes 2 days a week.
Okay.
So yeah, which is good for her, good for us. She really loves it. So yeah.
Yeah, our friends Joan and John that have a daughter just started going to the pre-K at the end of the street from us. It's like a block down. So
nice.
Jamie's been going down and picking her up once in a while, or going with her just on the way too. So it's kind of cute. But
it is cute.
Yeah.
It's when you're actually down on their level and doing things like that, you realize how big of a deal it is, right? When you get absorbed in your own life, it's let's just go. We got to keep moving. We got things to do. Come on. And then you realize no, they're leaving you. And that's all they know is you and maybe some grandparents and a few close friends. And then they got to hop into this room with a whole bunch of kids. Yeah. And some kids just can't be stopped. And then others are more introverted or cautious or whatever. And it takes a little bit. Yeah. Bravery.
Definitely bravery.
Yeah.
Well, I was going to say, I just got back from Indiana last week, Chicago and then Indiana. Got to go up and see the Hoosier State.
How was it?
It was nice. It was the heat had just broken, according to everybody. So, farmers like to talk about the weather.
Yeah, that's kind of a big deal.
But it was, 60 in the morning, high of 80, 82 during the day.
That's really nice for there in August.
It got some rain, super green. The sweet corn was coming in and just, absolutely
delicious.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Ended up bringing back a couple of Farmer's Dozen to hand out to some folks at work, which a Farmer's Dozen is apparently 14. One up in the bakers.
Okay. I didn't know that.
Well, I mean,
I didn't remember.
It might have just been this one, this one farm side stand, roadside stands tactic. I don't know if it's actually a thing.
Yeah.
But, not very good at math. I can't imagine it's good for business, but whatever.
Well, that's nice. It's always nice to go back home a little bit and, I don't know, feel the feels.
Yeah. It was the first time I'd been back in a while, I think during that time of year when everything was like that. I'm so used to going back around a holiday when things are kind of gray or brown.
Gray and brown.
Yeah, gray and brown, right. So seeing it in all of its full green glory was quite the thing. I definitely had some feels about it, for sure. I also noticed, in relation to some of our, more main topics, Eli Lilly's building a giant facility just north of
Where?
Lebanon. Like you can see it from the Interstate 65.
Really?
It's massive. I guess there's a
It's
little bit
all
of
Ozempic or whatever their brand is, Monjaro. I don't
yeah. I
remember.
think there's Ozempic. Yeah. Wait, is that right? Or are they
No,
Manjaro?
I think Ozempic is the Dutch
Yeah,
one.
you're
Yeah,
right. Ozempic is
the ones
Novo.
that discovered it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they're Manjaro. I mean, I'm sure it's not just that, but
Yeah.
just their general expansions. I pulled up a little piece talking about it. It's about something like a $9 billion facility they're building, but there's a bit of controversy relating to water rights and water usage. I need to find actually the actual stat because my parents said something that I could not believe. But do you remember the in Lafayette? There's an Eli Lilly facility on the banks of the Wabash.
Okay. I mean, I remember lots of the factories, but I don't specifically remember a Lilly one.
It's it's like across the river from McGraw's.
Okay. Oh. We didn't go out that way a lot. That's why.
Yeah, that's fair. Okay, holy crap. Yeah, so according to the Indianapolis Business Journal, this is Eli Lilly Company's LEAP project announced in 2022. So they're building a pipeline to the Wabash because the facility is ultimately going to use something about 800,000 gallons of water a day. And so,
Whoa.
yeah, and so people along the Wabash South at that point are obviously a little nervous about what that drawdown means and what that impact means. But I was thinking about, they have the facility already on the river, and I wonder in relation like how much their current facility actually uses. I was trying to look around, I couldn't find anything on it. But yeah, that's just, I can't even fathom.
No, I would need some sort of comparison, right? Like show me a community of 50,000 people, how much water is used on a daily basis for 50,000, not 50,000 people, 50,000 households, or whatever the numbers.
So the current capacity for the town that they're moving into, Lebanon, is about 4.6 million gallons per day. So for the town the size of Lebanon, which is a pretty, at this point, I think a good sized suburb of Indianapolis. I wonder if I can find a population stat.
It's crazy that Lebanon is now like a suburb of Indianapolis. It used to mark like the halfway point to the trip to Indianapolis.
I know, but all the northern suburbs have grown out so far and getting more, like Noblesville now feels like just a continuing rolling expanse of, Carmel and into Indy.
For sure. I mean, these days, all the money in the good schools are Avon, Noblesville, Carmel, Westfield, right?
This feels impossibly small. Care to guess the Lebanon population, according to the United States Census Bureau?
70.
You are so far off.
30.
Divide that by 5.
Really?
About 17,000. Yeah.
Oh, that is ways. I mean, obviously.
Yeah.
I just kind of assumed it had grown more.
Yeah, I did too. No, I was making some wild assumptions, but dang, that's, and you know what? There's probably a lot of unincorporated Lebanon that might be incorporated Lebanon. That stat I just pulled, and like the zip codes around it that aren't technically part of the city, but are Smithville or I don't know, or not even having a name. I don't know.
Wait, so go back to the water metric. What was it?
So 4.6 million gallons a day.
For 17,000 people, that seems
absurd. For 17,000 people, that seems, what's that?
So then why 800,000 gallons a day kind of doesn't seem that big?
Yeah, it doesn't. Okay, so I think it was a little bit of a...
Does every person in Lebanon water their lawn?
I don't know. Yeah, how many? Well, that's their capacity. That doesn't say that's what their actual usage is.
Oh, well, that's okay.
Yeah.
That's what they are capable of serving.
Yeah.
So that would that include
and that might also include going to
irrigation?
Some surrounding areas and some stuff of that as well.
For sure. Yeah. The water municipality might be bigger than the town.
So let's see, that would be the equivalent of you or I using 270 gallons a day. So that can't be what's going on. I don't think I use 270 gallons of water in a day.
I don't think I do either, but we're pretty precisely metered, water in and water out. I could probably look it up, but yeah.
Actually, now you got me curious. Yeah, let me pull up my, I'm going to pull up my center point? Who is my water with? Houston Public Water. I'm curious how much I use in a month. I think it's on the order of 2,000 gallons, if I remember correctly.
Per month?
Something around
that. For a household of 2, right?
Yeah. I mean, we water a little bit, but not a ton. I mean, our lot's only 4,500 square feet, and our house takes up most of it, so we don't have a lot of grass or anything. Maybe 100 square feet of grass. 700. So far for August, we're at 720. What was our Projected next bill usage 3,600 gallons. Last bill reading 55. Projected usage 3,600 gallons in a month. So yeah, so about 100 to 120 a day, somewhere in that range.
We are just a tad above that, minus the summer months when we have to water because we have a brand new lawn.
Mm-hmm.
So this year's particularly bad, but it'll get tapered off as the roots establish.
And Denver's notably dry, isn't it? I don't think of it being.
extremely.
Yeah. I think of it being
snow.
deserty.
I learned a new word when I moved here: sublimation. That's when snow skips the water stage; it just evaporates.
It's the triple point.
Whatever it is, I don't
Is
know
what that's called, or it goes above the triple point. Yeah, that's what dry ice does too.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Totally makes sense. That's the perfect image for it.
Yeah.
Because you look out on the deck and there won't be a drip. There's not a spot of water, but the snow has halved, right?
It's just gone straight into the atmosphere.
Straight
water
into the
vapor.
air, yeah.
Yeah. You have low pressure, low humidity, all the right conditions for that.
Sun.
Yeah, I forget how sunny it is up high in the mountains.
Well, that's interesting. 800,000. I mean, it's a lot, and I understand some controversy around it, but I mean, that's going to be a big. I mean, they just expanded I-65, at least between Lafayette and Indianapolis, right? Like the last several trips I've had have always involved construction. It's been years, and I'm trying to remember the last time I drove 65. Like I've seen my family a lot, but it's been here and other places. We haven't been back in Indiana for a hot minute. So anyway, that corridor is built and ready to handle more people.
Yeah, it's definitely, and there's more people using it for sure. I think there's a lot more people now that commute even daily from Lafayette down to Indianapolis, which is amazing.
It is amazing. Yeah, it's 2+ hours a day.
Yeah, it doesn't
depending on where in Indy you're going.
Yeah, I mean, Indy's a fine place to live. Go move closer, I say, but whatever.
Yeah, whatever. I don't know anything about the tax. I'm sure people are measuring property tax. There's a whole bunch of Chicagoland also envelops parts of Indiana, right? Because Illinois taxes.
Yeah, the
quite
whole
high.
northwest part of the state is on Central Time until you cross like some weird line in near Rensselaer or some town in the middle of nowhere.
Maryville, something. Yeah,
it's Maryville still on Central. You got to get a little further south, and then it flips over. It's or at least that's what I perceived driving through. Because we went into Chicago just a couple days before the convention. Spent a night just roaming the streets and bar hopping around the fine pubs.
How was the energy?
It was nice overall. The weather was great. People were kind of out and just jovial, I'd say. Overall, good vibes in Chicago on my recent visit, at least. There were some people a little apprehensive about the upcoming convention and worrying what the traffic and like in increased number of people around, because we were talking to more local folks. So they were a little, more than anything, they were just like, it's going to be a mess around here next week.
It's interesting. I feel like if the Bears actually like made it to the Super Bowl and the Super Bowl was hosted, which it wouldn't be, but was hosted in Chicago, people would not give two shits about how much traffic there's going to be. They'd be like, no, the Bears.
Yeah.
But for an event like this, it's like, I don't know. Do I want it?
Yeah, I don't know that it's really prestigious. Like, I was thinking if it was here, would I care? I'd just be like, this is just...
Right.
This is
I'd be in the same boat. I mean, it's like when Taylor Swift came to Denver, I was like, we're not leaving the house. I mean, that's an exaggeration. We're not leaving, our little enclave down here that's insulated from the Denver traffic. But
yeah,
there are many times we like go to Denver or go above Denver, and that wasn't going to happen that weekend.
Not going to mess with it when that's going on.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah, I don't really have any other news about Chicago though. Just have had a nice evening, and thanks for the good vibe, Chicago. You're good folks.
Cool. It's a good city.
Yeah, you just really the density is. I think we've talked about this before. The density you have there is just it's that next level city. Versus Houston is going to pass it eventually here in terms of population, but it's not the same. It's not the same.
When we were sort of still itching for that feel of New York, right? There was a serious thought towards Chicago. One, we'd be really close to one set of grandparents, and it fills the boat of direct to Honolulu. And then whether it was like,
poshy little house in Evanston, or like go really close to the Loop or Lincoln Park or something like that. Like, I mean, none of those spots are cheap, but
No.
it would have provided all of that feel, with a very different attitude. Culturally, New York and Chicago are very different, but it would have had that same vibrancy,
Do you have a sense of how much your home has changed in value since you guys moved in about a year ago now? Has it been that long?
Yeah, over a year and a handful of months. I would imagine it's flat, but considering some of the transactions that have gone on around us, it's up, but not marginally, which is totally surprising considering what rates have been. But looks like we'll get a cut in September, and let's see what asset prices do.
Yeah, man, it's going to be a fun couple of months as things readjust. We're still kind of flat over the last month and a half. I guess it's kind of trending up now.
In the market or housing?
In the market in general. And housing, though, I guess I think it's very location dependent on housing, though. I don't want to say.
I feel like it's moved around, right?
Yeah.
Like there's a, for a while it was all the Southeast and Texas getting just hammered with prices going up, and then that really tapered off. And then I've read some things about like Columbus blowing up much more recently. So yes, you're right. I think well, of course, real estate is location, right? But it really depends. But at the same time, a lot of the doomsday stuff just hasn't even come close from what I can tell, other than like some big office buildings taking enormous haircuts. Other than that,
yeah, commercial took a huge haircut, but residential, still relatively supply constrained. I think that's a lot of what Harris's policies that she has discussed. There's some interesting ones around.
Can you share some?
Yeah, have you not kept up much?
I try not to follow.
That's very fair. I've generally do the same, but I did hear some debate back and forth. I'm going to pull up. It is a $25,000 stipend to first-time home buyers on specifically new builds. It was a pretty narrow stimulus.
Specifically new builds?
Well, that's what I'm looking for.
I mean, just buy the home builders right now.
I can't be.
I mean, all that does is make the price of homes go up $25,000, right?
Exactly. Well, that was the argument being, since it was going to be for.
It's just throwing away money. Yeah. You could give like a tax holiday to the home builders.
Yeah.
For 360 days or something.
Yeah.
Right? That seems to me like would spur. From the populist standpoint, that's not popular. That's not going to work because that's helping big business and they're going to put it in their pockets and make big bonuses and stuff like that. But there are some places where the trickle-down theory still, like, right? It works a little bit. Or am I just dreaming? As soon as I said that, I was like, well, who's to say? Who's to say what Toll Brothers does versus KB versus,
So the administration would introduce a first-ever tax incentive for home builders who sell starter homes to first-time home buyers, according to the proposal unveiled.
Okay.
So
it's not a $25,000 check, basically. For first-time home buyers. Okay.
It's basically a tax credit.
Wait,
for the
for
builder.
The buyers or
for the builder?
For the builder.
I think it's for the builder.
Okay. This is more interesting than the headline read.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm sorry. Exactly. That's why I was curious when I first heard it. People were like, oh, this is inflation. This is inflationary. And I read it. And I'm like, maybe not. I'm a little more on the fence. I think it's.
Yes. It's one of those things that's like, you kind of got to play the experiment to see how it goes. Because I don't know that there is a definitive answer of how it plays in a complex economy.
Yeah. So I don't think this one is necessarily a grand slam, but it's also, I don't think it's stupid. Yeah.
Yeah. It's somewhere in the middle, which, these days, like I want singles and doubles. I want people heading down the middle.
Yeah, because I guess it stems from an idea that they had earlier where they were calling on Congress to implement a $25,000 in down payment assistance exclusively for 400,000 first generation buyers or first time buyers whose parents were not homeowners, and a $10,000 credit for first time buyers in general. Trying to target specifically places where there aren't, that generational wealth of real estate already built up within their family system, so to speak. Which, again, targeted, I think makes some sense. It's definitely an expensive proposal. 25,000 times 400,000. How many billion is that?
The size of the government is mind-boggling.
Right? That's a lot of zeros. Let me put some commas in there. 10 billion. So 10 billion for that particular
That's
proposal.
like a gnat. That's like a gnat in the size of the government's budget.
It really is. It's not even. I mean, I guess it all adds up. That's the thing.
It does, yeah. Just 10 billion here and 10 billion there.
Yeah, eventually it
It's
starts
like me
adding up.
canceling Netflix for a month, you know? Saved $18 or whatever.
That's what we need. We just need to reframe the taxes in the terms of government as a service. We're all just getting gas.
Government as a service, yeah. If it were so simple, it'd be like Estonia, right? Like you've got your card, you can just like pay them online and be done. And like they tell you, I don't know if this is Estonia or not. They tell you how much you owe.
Estonia is one of those countries. There's a couple that do that. Estonia is very advanced in their fintech in general, from what I understand.
Yeah,
I want to go visit it someday.
Me too. But I met some Estonians. I think it was 2 Estonians and 1 Lithuanian. I tried so hard to get them to talk about that, but all I got was like, yes. I'm like, are you uncomfortable with English, or should I go get another cocktail? They were very nice once I broke a little bit more of the ice, but I never really got more. I don't know if they just didn't want to share opinions or what it was, you know. Because I look at this and think like, oh my gosh, how cool! This is really neat, right?
Maybe
like,
they just didn't want to insult you.
Like the danger of it too.
They're just like, we don't want to make you feel dumb, so we're not going to tell you how great it is.
Yeah, that's a good option. Yeah.
Go figure.
All right, so we did talk last night about some topics, and we've got a whole string of them here.
Yeah,
and I think we'll probably take some time to knock several of these out across several episodes. But is there one in particular that's chiming you?
So yeah, one that I want to get to the question, but I want to ease into that.
Yeah.
So we've been talking a little bit lately about Huxley and Orwell kind of being in the zeitgeist lately. Seeing a lot of people,
or at least our zeitgeist.
Yeah, at least our zeitgeist, and the people. I think we follow a lot of common people online, so I think seeing a lot of people posting, reading Huxley and Orwell's, Huxley's Brave New World, Orwell's 1984, looking for, the future is here, Big Brother's here, tech is watching, and some reasonable level of truth to that.
Yeah.
But I was thinking about this, they're both these authors that had painted this view of this dystopian future, right? I'm wondering, like, when I should have looked this up. I don't know why I did not look this up before this, but when did they write those books in relation to their life? Because I was wondering,
what age were they?
What age were they? Is this just a symptom of
grumpy old man?
Of grumpy old man. Yeah, seeing that life is changing, you don't like it, and they're just then griping about it. Rather than being this revolutionary, society's falling apart, dystopia is coming, prophecy. No, it's just these old men complaining about things that, rightfully so. Maybe they feel something in their life, and they're putting that into what are really great pieces of literature. I've read them both, love them both. But sometimes as a society, maybe we read too much into it, and really it's just them kind of dealing with therapy of their aging process. Any thoughts?
Well, I think it's an excellent question, in part because you can sort of see the symptoms being manifest in us, perhaps, right? Like, swashbuckling our way into the 4th decade and having this material start speaking more truth to us than it had in the past. Concerns about confirmation bias there. But I think it's a fair question, but I also just wouldn't be surprised if they were like 32 or something.
Well, I'm doing the digging here in the background, and we're about to have an interesting result, I think, actually. Let's do. I'm just getting all sorts of use out of Excel today.
I was going to say, yeah. I think I need a calculator for these results.
Orwell, he was 46 when 84 published. Huxley was 38. So on the younger end. Let's look up Bradbury and Fahrenheit 451, because that's in that same vein. Is writing a dystopian novel just something that white men do when they're nearing midlife? That's what I'm thinking.
Better get on it, Sean.
I'm working. I gotta get to typing. Oh no, Bradbury was younger. He was only 33. Bradbury was also more prolific than the others. He was, I think, at least I recall him having a much larger body of work overall. But I don't think I'll ever revisit. But I did have to read it all, I think, in middle school. It feels like middle school and high school. We just read a ton of Ray Bradbury.
And Amusing Ourselves to Death was written by Neil Postman when he was 54.
Ooh, good addition. That's in my queue. I have not gotten to it yet. I am looking very much forward to it, though. Have you read that one?
No. I just saw that one passage and I was like, this is taking some kind of priority. It's sitting right here next to me, right? Like,
okay,
yeah.
Excellent. You and me both. I'm currently going through my. So I was actually listening to that link you sent me to. What was his name? Sean Puri.
Yeah.
Sean Puri. I guess he worked for Twitch, helped found. I don't know. I don't think he founded them.
I don't know a ton about his history.
Yeah.
He started some sort of. So Denver is like fast casual capital of the world.
Okay.
Or something along those lines. Like Chipotle was started here. There's a whole bunch of chains that have been started here. So if you need fast casual lawyers, if you need fast casual anything, like the whole ecosystem is here. And I think one of his first ventures was like a sushi spot. And he was trying to make a, fast casual sushi. And he was here in Denver. This is like early in his career.
Mm-hmm.
But then, he went out to the Bay and did tech stuff.
Yeah, that he mentioned, I think, in that piece it was a YouTube podcast you sent to me about growing an audience, something pertinent to us in our mind space right now, listeners, as you might imagine. But there were a couple things in that reminded me a bit of my annual re-listen of the Adventure Zone that I'm working my way through right now, and about looking how they built. For those who don't know, Adventure Zone is a dorky podcast about Dungeons and Dragons. It's these three brothers and their father sit around and play this dumb tabletop game and crack wise. I really love it. It's just a touching
totally
piece of art.
Sean.
And no, but listening to their early episodes, the quality was just very lo-fi. And then about the third kind of mini season that they did, they started adding in audio stingers and just really built out a much more audibly pleasant sounding product as they built their following. But listening to Puri talk about building your binge library and not worrying about focusing on the content and not the up-leveling the production value, I thought those were kind of interesting things that aligned between something I had kind of realized and thought about that this week, and then you sent that along. I'm like, oh, this is right in my mind space, and it really sunk in with me.
I liked the way Sean put it. I don't know why, but it stuck with me. I feel like I've heard that sort of advice before, usually in the context of like, don't worry about what it looks like, don't worry about what it sounds like, just get it done and keep doing it for a long time. It's like, okay, it's one thing to know that advice, but then he helped answer like the purpose. It's the binge library. Some episode some person's gonna find, and then they're like, huh, kind of like those guys, and then
they
listen
need
to another one, and then listen to another one, and then they subscribe, right? Like it's the one-off episode with the podcast that has like 4 published episodes seen, right? And it's really hard to hit subscribe on those because it's like, are they going to keep going? Do they last? Like, I don't really know these people. I haven't established the parasocial relationship yet.
Yeah, it's a brilliant concept and one that I immediately sunk in and really stuck with me. I don't know. It's giving me a positive outlook on the day so far. I'll say that.
That's
so
good.
it was funny that I kind of wanted to talk about that one thing, and then that came up this morning. I was like, oh yeah, there you go, perfect. Because I was thinking about, I love the ability to go back and just soak into something in depth like that, and have that. It's nice to have something on a weekly release, and the next one's gonna come, but when sometimes you just get in a mindset and a groove, where I just want to. All I want is that one content creator for a while.
Yeah, I've been doing that like this week. With a podcast called Made You Think with Nat Eliason and Neil Sony, and occasionally they have a third guy on, and I'm blanking on his name.
How is that? I've seen that pop through my mind space.
I like it a lot. There are a couple episodes where like the tangents are like it's clear that the book itself was not that meaningful to them because they didn't stay on the book at all. But it's really common for them to have tangents, and they just kind of go off on, they just kind of riff on the different things. And it has aided me in knowing like whether I want to read that book or not sometimes. I started listening to them in like 17 or 18 or something like that, really early. And then they kind of went on a hiatus, and I think they've got a few episodes this year. It's like, it's not a, well, by now it's a pretty big back catalog. But yeah,
About 119 according to their website. Yeah, that's great. That's doing it every week for 2 years.
Okay.
My
Yeah,
gosh,
those are
episode
pretty
74, America Reborn, The Fourth Turning. I'm adding that to my queue.
Yeah, they do. Like, I think there's Sovereign Individual in there, Fourth Turning. They do interesting books.
Okay. Yeah, I'm going to check these guys out.
That's why
looks
I
interesting.
like it, is like the some of the books where like, should I say, like I open it up and I'm like, too dry, I can't get through this sort of thing, right? They really plow through it and take the podcast itself pretty seriously, and then they hang out and talk on the book with lots of tangents. And the tangents are like a running joke. But yeah, I like it a lot.
Noted. I'm going to check that podcast out. That's a good recommendation. Yeah. I have not been absorbing anything new lately. I've just been rehashing old stuff, it feels like, which has been kind of a nice rut to be in. I say rut, it's not a rut, but it's nice
kind of a
groove.
Summer rut, right? Like people take the summer off. Yeah.
I feel like every summer I find myself kind of doing this.
Yeah. I mean, some of my favorites, right? Like Stratechery, Plain English, like they just don't publish much in the summer. So yeah, I open up my feed and I'm like, and so I've just been plugging away at the back catalog of Made You Think, and that's nice.
Yeah, that is very nice.
It's nice to have those reservoirs somewhere.
It really is, because you never know when you're going to need to tap in. This is not interesting discussion, I'm sure, but yeah, it's when you're sitting there in a airport, oh crap, what am I going to listen here for the next 4 hours while I'm stuck in this metal tube? Being able to tap into something like that.
Yeah, we all have stuff like that.
Yeah, exactly. So I want to, one other thing I wanted to bring up was kind of a listener question that came our way. And I'm going to paraphrase this as best I can to leave out a few details. All right, Dan, so we got a listener question. One of the dozen listeners or so that we have at this point reached out with a little item to discuss. They are currently in a situation at work where they have been asked by their corporate HQ to do a number of different initiatives. One of which involves taking a trip up to Chicago for this conference that's held every year in the Windy City called IMTS, which I should have looked up the name, but it's something of like the International Manufacturing and Tool Show, I think. Let me look it up. That's not right. International Manufacturing Technology Show. Duh, Sean. Large event where you have vendors that make these giant industrial pieces of machinery that make all the things that you and I buy, get together, show off their newest automation, their newest cutting tools, their newest 3D printers, whatever people are using to make the things that we use. They get together and share the newest tech. It's it's a pretty cool event from everything I've heard. And then another example would be something being asked to support something on a corporate level, supporting some initiatives and taking half a day, within the place where the city where they actually already reside, not even travel involved, and going to review some new tech that's coming out. And in both his situations, he asked his boss for approval and was told, no, that's not your job. I don't think you should be spending your time on that. And he was kind of confused and befuddled by this because his boss apparently is not usually somebody that is one to decline those sorts of opportunities, and reached out and said, hey, what do you think about this? So he agreed to let me bring it up here on the podcast and talk about it as well. So I thought you might have some interesting insights from your business background being a little bit different than mine in manufacturing. Maybe I'm curious, what do you see in that sort of situation?
For some clarity, the directive came down from HQ, but then he has to go ask his boss for permission.
Mm-hmm.
Is that, you're talking to a guy who's never worked at a place with more than 30 employees? Is that normal?
That's very normal.
That blows my mind.
I have been in my own world dealing with something of that kind of related, where I've been asked by HQ to go push things, not contrary, like outside of my boss's realm of approval. But I think sometimes they do that because they know that if they just speak to certain levels of management, messages won't come out, or they will.
Well, it's a game of telephone. It turns into a game of telephone at some point, right?
They want to talk directly to the people that are.
They identify you. Yeah.
Yes, exactly.
I mean, it makes sense. It still blows my mind a little, or like, we have email now with CC. It's like if I were the CEO and I wanted Sean Filippo on this project, I'd be like, okay, to Sean Filippo, CC, look at the org chart, so and so.
Oh, that's the problem. I think in some companies, when you have over 10,000 people, then that org chart can get pretty complex, and you forget who to copy on certain things, I would imagine. Not necessarily
but don't these people have secretaries that like look stuff up and like prepare things? I just call me skeptical.
I don't know.
Obviously, I think there's some maybe you need to work a little more completely, not harder, more completely.
That's good feedback.
You did something to avoid the game of telephone, but then you did, but your plan to avoid telephone also involved like checks and balances that weren't complete.
Yeah.
I mean, businesses are humans and they're held together by duct tape. So
that's the truth, man. That's the truth. Duct tape and staples.
But it puts him in a really hard spot.
Yeah, right?
Yeah. It's like going to one parent and saying, can I have a lollipop? And they're like, no. And then you go around the corner because you're, a little crafty kid. And you're like, hey, to the other parent, can I have a lollipop? And they're like, yeah. And then you walk around the corner with the lollipop and the other parent's like, where'd you get that?
Yeah, that's it's kind of like your mischievous uncle giving a kid a lollipop, and then the kid's walking through and mom says you can't have that lollipop. In a weird way.
Better. That's a better construct. Okay, and so basically, what he's looking for is some sort of idea. Next?
How do you deal with that situation if it's something he feels like thinks he actually should be kind of supporting, and then I guess also like why
does he feel like he should do the things from HQ, or does he want to do the things from HQ?
That's a good question. I don't know. I don't have that detail.
If he wants them, I would encourage him. I'm just kind of flat like if you want to do things, I feel like you should try.
Yeah,
Now, maybe the manager has like lots of information and they've been working there for 15 years longer than your friend. And they're like, no, this is a hot mess. You stay out of it. And I'm trying to protect you. That's possible.
Mm-hmm.
I'd be asking questions, I guess.
My immediate thought was that there might be some other behind the scenes politics going on of perhaps the review of travel spend or what people are spending their time on. Maybe there's some things going on within his org that he might not be privy to at the moment. And maybe they're looking at maybe businesses as his firm, and maybe they don't want to be spending money on travel, or heaven forbid, maybe they're having to worry about justifying headcount at some point and want to make sure people are focused on core functions. That was my initial thought in that situation.
You're saying that's the manager's thoughts, not the HQ's. So
exactly. So the manager's saying, "Hey, we're getting a lot of scrutiny." Be flipped?
Doesn't you're going to have to tell me where I'm wrong here? Like, wouldn't middle management be more concerned about like
I don't know. I could just see that though. Like I don't know. I mean, it depends upon the situation. I don't know some details here, so I'm making some hypothetical guesses.
Yeah.
But I could just imagine a situation where there's people in like a central team or something that would be supporting some initiatives that want their initiatives to go well, but also where does that budget come from? To support those things, and maybe they're trying to get things done for them, but at a local level, if it's depending upon how big of a organization or structure you would have, I guess you might have different facilities in different spots, or that are doing different divisions doing slightly different things. That HQ might be working with different divisions that might make different products, or I don't know. Like if you had automotive, you might have one division that's focused on drivetrain, and one division that's focused on safety stuff, and one division that's focused on tech, like etc. Or one team focused on trucks, one team focused on cars. So I could imagine that you might have a central team that is there trying to do initiatives that they ultimately want to push out across the whole organization. But then at a local level, maybe that local manager has some constraints that they want to then not choose to support the central team with. I could think. I don't know. I'm spitballing ideas.
Yeah, or to your point, like the headcount question, like he's like, I can't. You have no idea what's coming.
Yeah. That's like,
hey, how does HQ? That's when I keep going back to like HQ is supposed to be the repository of stuff like this, unless it is like, a team. So like, let's draw from the military or some of these tech companies. They'll have like layers, right? Like, I don't know what the acronyms are, but if you're an E7, you get this is your salary band, and if you go to E8, then this is your salary band. If you go to E9, this is it, and then the thing stops at E10 or something. Unless HQ in this example is a bunch of sevens, and the manager that this guy is going to is also an E7, so they're on the same layer.
Yeah,
They just work in different places
that could be.
with different priorities.
That could be.
And then in that case, because in my mind, HQ sounds like, executive team, boardroom, it's way up there. They should know things, or at least like pass things down through the chain where they get feedback on like, this is crazy. Why you're about to fire a lot of people and now you're doing this. This doesn't make sense. We need to rework this, or you need to tell me that this is the highest priority, and then I'll send my people. I don't know.
That's an interesting level of thought. Is it what like a central HQ team? I mean, I could even see some people like in our organization. I could see some people in our central HQ team being kind of even a lower level, like in terms of like band than like our senior management at a facility.
Yeah, they're 2 years out of some MBA program. They've got 2 years of McKinsey under their belt. That's the entire career that they've had outside of schooling, right? But there's this, HQ hired them to be this brain trust, and they throw them ideas and see what gets spit out, and then the directives come out. Perhaps with executive approval, perhaps not. I don't know. I'm left with lots of questions.
Yeah,
really.
Unfortunately, it's one-way communication here. I wish we could get some more insight to.
But there's but I think at the core, so there's this guy's predicament, and we can sort of like try to deconstruct all those things. But then on the zoom out level is like the spirit of, well, that's not my job.
Yeah, and that's what I wanted to talk about is, okay, so then you have a manager telling somebody that's not their job, where it sounds like he questioned that statement of he thought some of this actually was his job, and he's confused at whose job it would be if it wasn't his. And then that gave me the thought, sent me down the rabbit hole of you have some people who want to do well and that are reined in, and then you have other people who you want to get to excel and exceed, but then you ask them to do something that might be a little out of scope or push a boundary for them. And this has happened to me as a manager, hearing somebody say, that's not my job. And that sets my blood boiling about quicker than anything, if I'm being honest, because frankly, I'm right there with you, frankly, when I'm asking this, and I'm there to help. And it's not my job either necessarily, but we got to get this done.
Yeah.
So
we're all on the same team here.
Yeah.
We're all moving in the same direction, at least in theory.
So I feel like those are two kind of like telling somebody not my job is negative for your organization. And I think also somebody telling you that's not my job is negative for organization. I think that was the tie-in I wanted to make.
Yeah. I mean, what I want to do is fire those people. Because it's like, can you change them? Can you change that spirit? I'm not so sure. Yeah. They have to change it. And that might take some hard doing.
And I think those people are the type of people that they probably need to change the scenery. Is usually what I feel like.
That's how I feel.
They're burnt out.
Or the culture doesn't fit.
Culture doesn't fit them. This just isn't the right role for you.
Something's not right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would like to give people the benefit of the doubt in terms of like being able to turn that page and become someone who is yes, let's try whatever it is. Let's get after it. Like if that's what we all need to do, I'm on board. Tell me what my part is, right? I think everybody's got the capability for sure. But we've all been in mind spaces in our lives where, I'm sure every single person's had an episode where they became that person, at least for a little bit.
I think you're right. I think you're absolutely right. Well, that was kind of
I got one more tack onto that one.
Yeah.
How do you keep those people from entering your organization?
I suppose well-crafted interview questions to try to find people that say, I wear many hats, or people that seem to...
Cross-functional work,
yeah. It's not necessarily a ladder climber you're looking for, because some people that are like that are vertically visioned, they will say, well, that's not my job, that's going to get in my way. And and that's not necessarily a good thing either. You do need some of that within an organization of certain size too.
I think at a certain size, there's more room for variety of these different things.
Yeah, I think if you have an organization of 10 versus
10,000.
100 versus 1,000. You can have like 10. You probably don't want one of those on your team, but like once you get to 10,000, maybe, I don't know, or even 1,000, somewhere in that range.
Yeah.
I feel like the hundreds, possibly. I don't know. Yeah, I guess just careful interviewing, or how do you? What question do you ask somebody to find that nature?
So my example is a story I didn't experience, but I have heard. There is a certain firm, I'm sure there are many, but there's a certain firm that interviews this way, and you are being tested the moment you hit the doorman in the building. So they've got the doorman on the job, they've got the front desk person on the job, everyone that you meet at the firm
Is
and
interviewing you.
slightly outside the firm, because the doorman's not employed by the firm, is part of your interview. You don't know this. You weren't primed to know it. But if you treat the doorman like a jerk,
I'm treating every interview I ever have from now on like that. Though, if I ever have another interview, I don't know if I ever will.
But yeah, if you treat the doorman like a jerk, or if you're, snobbish or whatever, you're seeking cultural fit, right? So that's a strike. You get to the front desk person, same sort of deal. Front desk person will ask you if you would like water. Most people say yes, because dry mouth is pretty common in interviews.
Mm-hmm.
She'll get you a water and show you your seat, deliver the water. And then, come the stream of interviewer, which is much more, typical, nothing to write home about there. But then if you do not ask, there's no trash can in the room. If you do not ask where the cup should be put as you're exiting, then you didn't pick up after yourself.
What if you take the cup with you as you leave? You just walk out.
I'm not sure. It would be so funny to be a fly on the wall on some of these things. Like, he took the cup. Well, this isn't in the playbook.
He took the cup. That means he's too dumb. He could have just asked.
Yeah, he's not forward enough.
Yeah,
I can see that. Yeah,
yeah, exactly. Right. So like that's a subtle difference in that psychological role play there. That's fun.
So I always thought that example has stuck in my mind for a long time, because I think it's an interesting thing that you're trying to measure unmeasurables in some way, right? In such a compressed period of time. I think the old adage is like, would you want to be on a 4-hour flight with this person, or would you want to go to a 2-hour dinner with this person? I think those are good questions, but then it kind of leans into like, but how do you answer those questions in a hour-and-a-half time slot for interviews, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's totally different. I mean, you could do the interview over dinner. I've done a walking interview before, which I really liked. Yeah.
Describe the walking interview. How did that work?
It was a multi-person thing. So I, walked in, got shown to the room, sat at the table, and got interviewed by a few people. And then I came to the next guy, and he was like, "Let's get out of here." And I'm like, "Okay." So I threw on my bag, and we went on a walk.
That's cool.
I thought it was really nice. Really lowered the temperature in terms of anxiety for me.
I'm sure. Because like just letting your body literally walk out the stress had to have been a
blood moving, fresh air.
Yeah.
It was good. Yeah. I really liked. I don't know if it was a tactic or not, or if it was just like the spirit of this guy. I mean, I think I have an answer, but I liked it as both,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. That's, I like that. I don't know if I'll ever have a chance where I can actually implement that. That's a fun idea. But yeah, I'm gonna have to think about that question, like questions you ask to find people who don't, are going to avoid that "it's not my job" mentality. Because that's definitely one mentality you can
point blank ask them. Have you ever said "it's not my job"? And then give them a chance to
Have you ever been
themselves.
asked to do something that's not your job?
Yeah.
And how did you handle it?
Yep.
That's kind of
I think the common one is like when you disagreed with your manager, how did you handle it?
Mm-hmm. Do those questions ever actually work though? Like, I mean,
that's my problem. That's why I think this other example is interesting, because it's under the radar, it's hidden, but it's a behavioral thing, and I think that's fair. Like, especially with, it doesn't matter how the size of the organization, but like especially the small ones, like it's expensive to bring someone in and then find out 3 months that they're just a snake in the grass and they're hurting the team or something, not a fit in some way.
Well, Dan, that was a pretty good discussion. I think we've kind of hit the nails on the head that I wanted to touch base on. Anything else you'd like to hit on, or?
No, nothing additional. I think some of the things we talked about are like common problems. So hopefully, like something we said jogs something for someone, right?
Yeah.
Put this out in the world and hope it does good.
Yeah, and it was kind of fun answering some questions from out there in listener land. So if anybody else has a question, be sure to get at us, leave us a comment on whatever app you've listened to us on, or find us on Twitter. Myself at SlowVSM, Dan at Daniel Hackey. I'm sorry, X, whatever you want to call it. And someday we'll probably maybe get an email going for the show, but I don't know that we're itching to do that anytime soon. But thanks for tuning in to another episode.
DMs work just fine, right?
They do. DMs work probably better.
Yeah.